or call 206-329-6893. We look forward to seeing you there.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Oh, we want to pump you up today. This is God Is, and we're doing a lot of different things in your community. We want to make sure we get in touch with each and every person it is. And so go to our Instagram, Facebook, tweet. We doing it all in your community. Go to our website also. Look us up, RainierAvenueRadio.world. Inspirational gospel music and also God Is Talk Show. Miss Dinah doing it all as we doing it right here on your favorite community radio station. So look us up. Go to our website. This is God Is, an inspirational gospel music.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio. .world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Hello, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio. Afternoons with Monique. Unfortunately, the host is not here yet, so we will just entertain you with some background music and tell your friends. And Monique will be interviewing both the Port of Seattle Commissioner Sam Cho in the second half at 2:30, and shortly Seattle Muralist. Not sure when. Also known as Dozfy. So that should be starting as soon as Monique arrives. Thank you for tuning in.
This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. You're on Rainier Avenue Radio, and it is 2 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time. My next guest has been featured on Forbes, Seattle Defines, 1889 magazine, King 5, Eater, Portland, and numerous other publications. He's an impressive, humble, amazing artist that came from Atlanta to Seattle a few years back. Please welcome to my show artist, muralist, Patrick Nguyen Dozfy, aka Dozfy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Good. Just keeping busy.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure seeing you for the first time. I've seen many of your artwork on the internet before the show. What an impressive talent you are. Tell us, What brought you to Seattle?
I mean, truthfully, my wife and I met in California, and then we both did long distance. I went to Atlanta, she went to New York, and she got a job here in Seattle. So we both decided to meet up here, and she has family in Portland and in Seattle. So it worked out really well just to meet here in the middle, I guess, in Seattle. It's not really middle, but the West Coast side.
And how long have you been in Seattle now?
We're going like since 2015, so 7+ years.
Now, what happened to menu art? What brought about that inspiration to that? I understand that it started in Atlanta.
Yeah, so menu art. I had done the art scene for a bit. That kind of took a break from it, and so in Atlanta, my friends and I, and when I was working at, we would go out to restaurants or bars, and I would just doodle on receipts, and then I would crumple it up and throw it away. And then one time I went to the restroom and came back, and I saw my friend digging through the trash. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I like your artwork. I want to keep it." And a mutual friend at the table with us was like, "Hey, you can just draw on the menu. We just print them out, once a week." So that was the genesis of the first idea, and then I did that at Leon's Full Service in Decatur, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta, and drew a line, if I remember correctly, on the drink menus, gave it to the restaurant, and since a lot of my friends are back in the kitchen, I gave it, say, "Hey, it's a gift to the kitchen and the staff." Next thing you know, 3 months later, they hung it up on the refrigerator right behind the bar, and I was like, "Yo, you like that?" And they're like, "Yeah, we love it. Are you the guy?" And then that was like the light bulb. It's like, "Oh, okay, well, let's just do this because, it's fun, it's relaxing." And my wife's a foodie, so we just did that at restaurants, and then carried that over to Seattle in like 2015, and the Seattle restaurant community and really all the community welcomed it, and really grateful for everyone who's accepted us and supported us.
Did you say she's in the restaurant business too?
Oh no, she's something completely different.
Oh, okay. Now in 2020, during the pandemic, some of the Seattle restaurants were attacked, busted in, and they had to board up their restaurants. And I understand that you created this, maybe along with your team. I understand you now have a team of artists that work with you, but you created this movement called Stay Strong. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, so just to clarify, I'm the only artist on the team. The team actually helps organize everything because it wouldn't have been possible without them. So they kind of help me get the slides set up and everything. I'm the only artist on the team. But they, like I said, the team really, really connected with the restaurants and small businesses that we already had relationships with. And when they, like you said, when they boarded up, when things were getting vandalized or fear of vandalism, it's like, "Hey, can you create something to beautify the whole process?" Right. And at the time, with the COVID, it was very stressful mentally, psychologically, physically. So we kind of decided to keep a simple phrase, and stay strong was the one. But we made sure that we put the space needle, like a beacon of hope, a big green heart, green for the Emerald City, and then I put "Stay Strong" in the middle. So it kind of symbolized like, hey, and we'll get through this together as a symbol of hope. And that was in 2020, and here we are, making it through. So looking back, I'm really, really, really grateful for the community, the small business who thought of us, and then the team to help organize it, because we did like 65 board murals during that time.
Now, if you folks out there listening in and interested in seeing Dozfy's art, he has an Instagram page. His work has been featured in numerous restaurants around Seattle. But you want to see his highlight reel? What do you call those? Time lapse?
Yes.
You can watch him move and create this gigantic wall art in time lapse, and you can see how pictures. There you go. Okay. Thank you, Dan. This is an example of how he created his art. I mean, it was just so impressive. Now, look how fast he can move.
Well, I mean, time lapse, you can speed things up. But yeah, I mean, we did that with Friends of Little Saigon. Their office is right next to Hello M in Little Saigon area. We did it as a landscape of really just being on a beautiful landscape and stuff like that. And that the time lapse makes it go super fast, but it takes us a while, like a couple hours. But
still, that's very fast for art creation. Couple hours, seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you've done this for 30 years that you learn tips, you get good mentors, you learn tips of the trade and how to execute on a very high level. You know, we pride ourselves in the professional work we do, and that's why I said it takes a team, because organizing it and stuff like that. The beauty of it is that I could still focus on make beautiful artworks and making sure that we, you know, tell the emotional story that the audience can connect with.
Before we get into the how, let's talk about this painting right here that you just created of Halong Bay, which is a scenic region of Vietnam. Thank you, Dan. Did you draw this from photograph, or how did you come up with the idea what to draw?
Yeah, so my methods, well, depending on the style, but this right here is based off of like Chinese brush painting style. So I learned that in college. And so with that style, you try to maintain the essence of the, you know, what you're trying to create. This is more focused on the landscape. Yeah, the mural, the beautiful sunset, the beautiful waters flowing, you know, the tropical tall mountains and trees. Very, very
majestic.
You know, exactly. It's gorgeous, breathtaking. You know, when you see one photo, you're already moved. And so that's the idea of what I'm trying to capture. So I use photos as an inspiration, but I don't try to draw directly from it. I just try to get the emotional feeling from it. And then like Chinese brush style, just how do I express that?
Amazing. I at one point was taking some classes, and obviously when I was seeing your work, I was so in awe. I wanted to go over and just watch you work.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you should do. I mean, that's the most flattering thing. If people want to move and two are inspired to do art from it. I mean, that's the ultimate compliment.
How did you? I know that you started at a young age, but how did your art evolve? I asked Dan to load the 8 photos that you sent over from the bus that's loaded with all the people and doodling of not hibiscus, but like the chrysanthemum, and I'm not sure what it's called in Vietnamese. In English,
Right.
I think it's chrysanthemum, but I'm not sure. And Dan, can you pull up some of Dozfy's art that I sent over on email to you? While he's pulling those up, tell us how your art has evolved. You know, how did you start? You know.
Yeah. So I mean, I just want to make sure, like, it's been a 30-year process. So I'm very fortunate to have really good support and mentors to go through the process. So really, like, first, I would say my, you know, being a toddler to like college, it's really understanding the techniques of art and like what you can do with art to express an idea, an emotion, a thought, a story. And that's in trying to tell a story. So that's like the first, you know, I would say 20 years of just me just creating art, creating a style, and then also really, really understanding like, well, what do I make that moves people and also moves me?
Yeah.
So that's first 20 years, and that's me as an artist. Now, I mean, the sequential years, and that's at least been like 15 years, is that understanding who's my audience and who am I working with and what do they want to say and how do I connect with their audience. And so as you can see that there's a whole gamut of images. Like you look at the restaurants, like the chicken, that's a chicken supply. It's a Filipino restaurant. They wanted something like a little quirky, but Filipino, kind of fun. So I like the black and white style. So that's where they go. If you go with like the portraits, well, like I've studied portraiture in college and oil painting. So it's more like, how do I draw emotions with color? So that's where you see more color. And then you see the food items, like the duck, it's just the restaurant, same thing. And then I could be a little bit fun, like with the stormtrooper. That's a little fun little gift for my little toddler, you know. So like it's just really, how do I convey something to the person or people or community that I'm working with? And so you have a whole plethora of just different ways my art is viewed, but then the style is still the same. So that's the first 20 years. That's me as an artist expressing.
I see. Too bad Dan couldn't pull up those pictures that you sent. I wanted to show our audience the beauty of digital radio show is that you were able to see visual, sort of like a TV program. So if Dan, you can figure out how to open those photos that I sent over to you, it would be so fantastic. If you need me to resend them, I could do that as well. But yeah, folks, if you are interested in seeing more of Dozfy's art, he has some. You have some paintings in the Chinatown International District area of Bruce Lee, and there was I'm not sure who the other guy is.
Or
but-
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, we have a couple of murals. Like that, I mean, that piece is kind of the story behind that. Is during the time of the protests, unfortunately, it affected the international district, and the businesses there just were also in the same situation. Want to support a good social cause, but then as well as make sure they protect their businesses. And so, Tai Tong is actually the restaurant where Bruce Lee used to go eat at, and has a rich history in terms of the restaurants and the small businesses in the international district. So we talked about that. The owner also loved Bruce's movie Game of Death. So it was like, oh, well, how do we combine the two? And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a student of Bruce Lee, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a huge figure in the Black community, and then Bruce Lee in the Asian community, and putting them unified together with the dragon. A symbol in Chinese culture as well as in his movies, and so making that piece kind of like stood out there. And then the piece like we do near Lambs across the Hello M, it's different, same thing in terms of like telling a story, and that's more about the markets in Vietnam where they're on the boats, and so all those items, the crab, the shrimp, the mountains, same thing is where they do like little markets on the water, and so that's what those images allude to.
How did you study art in college? Earlier you mentioned that you took classes there. Did you study art? What did you study for undergrad?
Yeah, so undergrad I'm very, very actually typical Asian route. I studied engineering, architecture engineering initially, then switched over to biochemistry. And then from biochemistry, I was like, I kind of like art. Let me just switch to art too. So I had already the basics of engineering and biochemistry, but then did art the second half. And I studied more of studio arts, the category, but focused on portraiture and oil paintings. But like I mentioned before, having good mentors, and my mentor is a famous international Black artist, Michael Ray Charles. He taught me really like how do you use art as a force, as a way to move people, how to make them think. And so that's kind of why the latter half of my art career is understanding who I'm talking to and how do they feel and how do I connect with that.
The 8 photos that pictures that you sent over, I noticed that in the earlier part, your sketches seem more simplistic and the strokes are less bold, less powerful comparing to the recent work that I see in the time lapse. Your strokes are much more determined and bold, and the pictures are it has a certain strength to it that it's hard to describe. Let's go back a little. Well, did I observe that correctly? I'm just talking as a layperson observing this.
Oh no, I think you've got a good point. I mean, I have to see the image myself because I would agree that as I mature, I can be more bold with my mark making, and then detail wise, it depends. It's hard because I got to see, because I know as in college I did too much mark making. My teachers would say that it's okay. You could do more with less, and so I did that, and then I think now I'm kind of returning back to it. It comes back and forth because like Chinese brush style is kind of going back to my roots of like, hey, there's a lot of mark making, but with the white on black, you have to do less mark making because it's too much. You will lose the effect. So I think you're interpreting it just right. I just need to see the images because
I'm referring to the Asian scene. It's a little bit more of a sketch than a bold, more simple sketches. The 2 boats. Unfortunately, I don't have a chance to show it here, but the 2 boats and the rickety wooden bridge that you drew.
Oh, gotcha. Yes. Yeah. So you bring a good point. So that style of the black
Drawing.
and white, the Chinese brush style, it does require more does require more sketch-like qualities, because that's how you really one pay tribute to the Chinese brush style in a way, but then the sketch-like is more my style, where I'm just like, okay, I kind of fiddle it, and then as you said with the birds, yeah, you're right. There's a lot more mark making, because I'm trying to depict textures and feathers and all that, and that requires more detail stuff. So you know,
I watch them with fascination. Of course,
thank
that's you know, obviously you had some time to devote to your art and your craft. It actually remind me of Da Vinci.
That's a little bit that's a flattering comment. Yeah.
Well, you know, I studied a little bit, you know, biology and history and art, and Da Vinci is not only, I believe was he a physician? I know he was a scholar.
Oh, he was everything. He was a scientist, an engineer.
Right. He's like a Renaissance man with
is,
so many talents. But if you look at his biology drawing of animals, the eyes have a certain gleam, lifelike quality, similar to what I observed in your, I believe, I think you were drawing an eagle or a bird of some kind. Was it an eagle?
I probably saw. I saw so many, so
it was
hard to keep track
on a
of.
menu. One of the first ones that you left at the restaurants.
Yeah, it probably was a bird. I probably was an eagle. It was in Seattle. It definitely was an eagle, because I pay tribute to like the wildlife, to where I draw the menu art.
So you know, it was also very lifelike. So the observation of these living creatures were just depicted very amazingly through your hands and your eyes and your interpretation. So I'm in awe of your talents, and it takes someone. I guess I really I appreciate the art, and so I appreciate the artist that you are.
Yeah, well, just talking to you sounds like it for sure. So I really do appreciate it. And us talking here, it just proves it.
So you have a fellow Vietnamese American. So I understand you were born in Houston. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you move from Houston to Seattle?
Well, you know, my parents were refugees from Vietnam War, and then my dad was sponsored by a family to go to Houston. My mom fled with her family. My mom was widowed because of her first husband died in the war, and so they met while really just trying to rebuild their life in Houston, Texas. And so then, you know, around 1984, I was born. And then the whole process, I was like journeying with them in Houston, Texas, Colorado, Austin, Texas, and back to Houston, Texas, because that's where most of their family is at, and that's where we gravitated to. But really, during that journey, just understanding, that's really how we view like first generation Asian in America, just how the traditional side and then being an American, you know, influence how I see the world, how I react to the world, and so you can see that in the art. Just, you did a great job of explaining like the styles, because like when I want to really be bold, I can be bold, and that's to me like more the American raising in me, where like speak up versus being respectful. That's where the Chinese brush style comes in, just really respectful to the technique, the culture, and tradition. So those, I try to maintain that with style. Then also the hardest part, I'm still learning, especially now being a dad, listening to what you know, what the client wants, what the audience wants. The same thing like being a dad, just understanding what my toddler wants, what my wife's needs are, what my grandparents' needs are. Just really like sitting down and really eliminating. Like you said, humble. I mean, I'm still working on it, but really eliminating my ego and instead of trying to understand like how you want my point of view to be across, is what are they saying?
Yeah.
And how do I really just put that in my shoes? How do I use empathy and compassion to convey that?
What fascinates me is that I learned that you actually are also a physician, in addition to being an artist, which was not shown anywhere online. I did not realize that until very recently. What type of doctor are you?
So I specialize in physical medicine and rehab, or physiatry, other terms, and we help out patients with needs related to like spinal cord injury, strokes, and now recently like really severe diseases that have prolonged them in the hospital. COVID's a perfect example. And so we try to help kind of rehab, which means basically get their life back together after being inflicted by a horrible disease or whatever incapacitating, and trying to get their life back together. So yeah, that's the gist of it. It's much more complicated because again, it involves a team, therapists, other doctors, case managers.
Rehab, right?
Yeah, it's very more complicated.
How much time do you devote to your daytime work, and how much time do you spend on the art these days?
Oh, I can't tell you. It all varies.
Yeah. So it's not like a weekend kind of a gig. I feel like you spend quite a bit of time drawing.
I mean, for 30 years I've been working on art, and so I've got a lot of mentors how to make things more efficient. So it's hard to tell. I know I always spend like an hour or two of art on the weekdays. On the weekends, it varies. I mean, I put it that that's why the team's so important. We make sure that they make sure I protect my job as a physician as well as being a father. So I could tell you, it's probably that's the average. It's a little bit lesser now as a toddler. It's like the timing is more precious, and so I know at least probably spend like maybe about 10 to 20 hours a week on art.
Yeah,
a week. I would say that's fair to say. The team does a great job of maintaining that.
Right. They say you don't use it, you lose it. I don't think you'll lose it anytime soon, but still, that's a good amount of time devoting to a hobby. It's almost like a career at this point. But you have
it is a career. I would now say it's a career now with a kid.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that we gave you these great projects to work on, and as you can see, we're helping out the community, and as I said, it takes a team, and so people like you who believe in us allows us to have opportunities, and then we're very fortunate to really kind of understand what the community needs and how we can help.
If people want to see your real life art at restaurant, can you tell the audience some of the places that you have left your marks?
If you're talking about indoor artwork, man, there's a lot. Well, so Ethan Stoll has
Musang.
Well, Musang, they probably have it in the back of the wall. But I would say like far back in downtown, they have a bar up top. We did a couple trees there. We have in Ballard, we have like Arashi Ramen, we have Pie Par Ballard, we have Copine, we have
really?
Ship.
You're in Copine?
Yeah.
Okay, a great restaurant.
It is a great restaurant. It's hard to say because it's almost like you tell me what restaurant, the neighborhood you're going to. I was like, oh, we have some art there, I think.
Wow.
Like Finney Ridge, we have, Chicken Supply.
Wow, amazing. Your body of work, you definitely left your marks all over Seattle at this point. The Space Needle mural of Stay Strong are in different places as well. So I want to thank you for taking the time and joining me on Afternoons with Monique today. And before you go, we would love to know who you would recommend for Afternoons with Monique to interview next.
Oh, man. Have you interviewed Yenvi from Fallback?
I haven't, but gonna have to make the connection. I think I know her father, but I don't know her personally. So maybe that would be a great person for me to interview next. It sounds like you
the story of this is tremendous, and how long they've been in the Seattle in the Vietnamese community. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you for mentioning her, and thank you for coming on Afternoons with Monique this afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. Okay, well, next off, we will have Commissioner Sam Cho from the Port of Seattle on at 2:30. We're going to have a 3-minute break, and we'll be right back on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not helping bad girls set up their websites, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Điều kỳ diệu nào đó sẽ xảy ra khi bạn thắt dây an toàn. Đó là điều kỳ diệu khi chúng ta đặt điện thoại của mình ngoài tầm với, hoặc cung cấp thêm chỗ cho ai đó trên xe đạp của họ. Một hành động nhỏ dừng lại để ai đó băng qua đường, đó là một vẻ đẹp. Ngay cả việc bắt xe về nhà sau khi uống rượu cũng rất anh hùng. Bởi vì tất cả những điều nhỏ nhặt đó đóng vai trò to lớn cho việc giữ an toàn cho chúng ta. Cùng nhau, chúng ta đến đó.
The beat of the fox with nastiness is back on K-Fox Night Beat.
Yo, what's the deal? It's the legendary Hall of Fame DJ Mixmaster Ice from UTFO.
What's up? Who you thought this is? This is Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And this is Terry Lewis.
And I'm Grand Mixer GMS.
What's up, y'all? This is DJ Third Degree.
This is JJ Hudson from the High Children family.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
That's my noise.
Peace. Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
Friends of the Waterfront, Saddle presents a free concert Saturday evening, September 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m. Come out see some sensational regional bands and artists including Shania Shepherd, Fly Moon Royalty, Night Train, Breaks and Swells at the fabulous Pier 62. Enjoy live music, local food trucks, a beer garden, and all the sights and sound of the wonderful Seattle waterfront. So don't miss Pure Sound's free concert series, Saturday, September 3rd, from 6 to 9 p.m., celebrating the fabulous summer of 2022. So for more info, visit puresounds.org.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Welcome to Afternoons with Monique on Rainier Avenue Radio. My next guest was listed by the Seattle Mets as one of the 100 most influential people in Seattle. He is an American politician and an entrepreneur based in Seattle, Washington, currently serving as a commissioner for the Port of Seattle. Prior to serving as a commissioner, he was also the founder and CEO of Seven Seas Exports. Please welcome to Afternoons with Monique, Commissioner Sam Cho.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. How are you today?
I'm good. The weather is lovely. Summer Seattle's are hard to beat, so I can't complain.
Absolutely. We're having a kind of a warmish summer this year in Seattle. But I'm so glad that you and I have a chance to sit down today. And so, like most of my other guests, I always like to get to know my guests before they became who they are today, what their journey to Port Commissioner Sam Cho has been like. So I know that you were born and raised in Seattle, but you are an American, a Korean American, right. And first American-born generation, right?
Correct.
Second generation?
Correct. My parents immigrated to the United States.
There is a. I'm sorry. I just missed what you just said just now.
I'm sorry. You're correct. My parents were immigrants to the United States through the Port of Seattle in the late 1980s. They came through the Port of Seattle. My parents were dry cleaners growing up, and so we come from very humble beginnings. And I don't think they could have ever imagined that their son would someday run the port that they immigrated through. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, fascinating. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a little brother. He's 4 years younger than me. He also is in Seattle right now as well.
Very cool. And you were actually not born in Seattle. I
I
think
was born in
Chicago.
Chicago. Yes, that's correct. I was born in Chicago, and I moved to Seattle because my dad went to the University of Washington for a few years.
Oh, is that where you went to?
No, I actually went to American University in Washington, D.C. That's actually where my career in public service and policy started.
I see.
Yeah, I studied international relations, hoping to become a diplomat and join the foreign service. But I ended up working for a member of Congress as a foreign affairs, trade, defense, legislative assistant, and that's how I fell into politics and all that stuff.
That's interesting. The son of the dry cleaners. What got you to be interested in politics and international relations?
Yeah, so I think for me, first of all, I would say that it wasn't my parents. My mom used to tell me growing up that there's three things in my life that I should never do. The first one was drugs, the second one was gambling, and the third one was politics.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so 2 out of 3 is not bad, I guess, but I did not grow up wanting to be in politics or politics. My interest was in international affairs. Obviously, growing up with kind of a bicultural household where one foot was in the American heritage and culture, whereas when I went home, I was always kind of immersed in our Korean culture and heritage. I've always had an affinity towards international affairs and foreign policy, and so when I thought about what I wanted to do, I felt like, oh, I want to become a diplomat, represent the United States all across the country. And who knows, maybe someday I'll do that still.
All right. You're very ambitious. Where did you get this ambition from? I mean, a lot of kids, like my daughter, 6 years old, she draw this thing that she wanted to be a mail carrier. I mean, Commissioner Sam Joe want to be a diplomat. Wow, where did you get that? Were you a very good student? Is that how you got this confidence from?
Well, I was not the best student, I would say, but I was, I would say I was above average. I did pretty well in school always, but I've always had an affinity towards, international service. I grew up in the church, and I used to go on a lot of international missions. So I've been to Mexico, Kenya, as a missions trip during the summer, right? A youth group, whatever. And so I've always had a heart for service. I think part of it was trying to figure out how I can make that into a career. And foreign service was very appealing to me because I was very into international development and helping underdeveloped countries. That's why I went to Kenya. That's why I went to Mexico as a missionary. And so that it was a natural kind of transition for me to think, okay, if I do this for a living, being a diplomat or working for the United Nations or UNICEF, that was kind of my goal back in the day.
Interesting. That's awesome. That's fascinating. Did you study international studies or business in college?
I studied international relations as my major, but my sub specialty was international economic relations. I was always involved and interested in kind of trade, commerce. So that's that actually is why also I love the port, because the port is all about trade and commerce.
And you obviously know our former governor, Gary Locke, was Secretary of International Commerce?
Yep, he's Secretary of Commerce. Gary's a great friend and an amazing mentor. He was a huge supporter of my campaign, and I continue to see him in the community. And so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Gary Locke. I'll tell you.
We're gonna have him on Afternoons with Monique in the future.
That would be amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a friend of mine already asked me if I would like to have him on. So now that's the second person that's very encouraging. So I'm going to ask him to be on Afternoons with Monique next. So now let's ask you about your work at the Port of Seattle in the last, how many years that you've been there? 2019 until now. So 3 years. What have you done that you feel contributed significantly to the city of Seattle?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, for those of you who might not know what the port is or what it does, we are a special purpose government, and we manage and run Seattle Tacoma International Airport, as
Mhm.
well as our seaport, our harbor here, where all those container ships come in.
Mhm.
We also have the cruise industry. We have a very, very robust commercial fishing
Mhm.
industry here, and grain exports as well. It's a little bittersweet because I was elected in 2019. In November of 2019, I was sworn in on January 7th, and our first case of COVID was January 21st. So I joke and often say I only had 2 weeks of non-COVID, and my entire term has been during COVID.
Right.
And so it's been a crazy period to be running a port because, as you can imagine, when COVID first hit, no one was flying.
Right.
So the airport was a complete ghost town, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then, on the seaport side, I'm sure everyone has read about supply chain issues and
Mhm.
congestion, right? And so,
Right.
for me, being only 2-3 weeks into the port job, having to deal with two major crises, once in a generation crisis was very overwhelming.
Yes.
It accelerated the learning curve. My
Mhm.
my biggest concern during COVID was making sure that small businesses, minority business owners, were not going to go under and collapse during the
Mhm.
pandemic. And one of the first things that I did when the COVID pandemic hit was actually meeting with our minority business tenants at the airport. So think
Mhm.
about all the dining, the restaurants, the retailers
Inside the restaurant, inside the
inside the
hotel.
airport. Yeah,
Mhm.
because you know those guys, they make money off foot traffic at the airport, but if no one's flying, there's no foot traffic.
Yeah.
One thing that people don't realize is that most restaurants during the pandemic pivoted to delivery, like DoorDash, Uber Eats.
Yes.
But a restaurant in an airport can't do that because
Right.
those drivers can't get through security.
Yeah.
And so for those tenants, it was an extremely, extremely difficult time. A lot of them were under tremendous financial hardship. And so first thing I did was meet with those business owners to figure out how the port can be supportive
Mhm.
in helping them survive. And so we got really creative with things like forbearance, rent abatement, waiving minimum annual guarantees. We ultimately also gave all our tenants 3-year lease extensions so that they can go back to their banks and get bridge loans, right?
Right.
And so I'm extremely proud to say that not a single minority business tenant went out of business during the pandemic. Every single one of them survived and pulled through and
That's
are currently operating. I'm
Mhm.
very, very proud of that. We do a lot at the port in containing containers.
Mhm.
COVID-19 with all the supply chain disruption has enabled us to actually regain and take some market share from other ports like LA, Long Beach, and Vancouver.
Mhm.
They were having issues as well, so we were able to go out and say, hey, the Port of Seattle is a better alternative, right? That's been really great. And if you have been to Seattle Tacoma International Airport recently, you probably noticed all the construction that's happening.
Yeah.
If you've flown out of the N terminal, North Satellite Terminal, you'll see that it's a brand new facility, high ceilings, totally remodeled, natural light. So we're modernizing the airport dramatically. If you go through International Arrivals Facility, you're going to go through a new, beautiful facility we just built. Cost us $1 billion.
Wow.
But we're spending $4.4 billion over the next 5 years to upgrade the airport, and it's going to be a beautiful facility. And we actually took advantage of COVID, and this is interesting because in the same way that no foot traffic was bad for restaurants, no traffic is good for construction.
Oh.
If you think about it, the airport never shuts down; it never closes, right?
Right.
So there's always people going in and out. There's a lot of foot traffic.
Mhm.
So it makes doing construction at an airport very difficult.
That's true.
But during the pandemic, when people were not flying, it was a rare opportunity for us to accelerate
Building.
building because there was less foot traffic.
Yeah.
And so we doubled down on a lot of projects that maybe have been, scheduled for later. And we said, let's pull it up. Let's just get it done now.
Yeah.
So that when flying returns, which it is right now,
Yeah.
we can cash in.
Ready.
Be ready. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what's happening right now.
Fascinating. Now, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned how much it costs to build and maintain these facilities. I mean, it's in the billions of dollars, you said.
Yes.
What programs are you championing as a member of the Port of Seattle that you especially we recently talked about that airport and supporting minority, and we talked about the property tax that no, we haven't talked about the tax, but I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah, sure.
Where did the money that support the port building, the pave and the construction of the new building, where did they come from? The money?
Yeah. So we have the airport generates its own revenue. We have gate fees, landing fees, something called the passenger facility charge as well. So we charge the airlines to use the airport, right? It's like it's a landlord-tenant relationship, and so our tenants are the airport airlines, and the airlines pay us to land, they pay us to park, and they pay us to load people onto planes. Right? We also make money off parking. If you've gone through CTAC, you pay for parking. All our airport dining and retailers, the ones that I mentioned previously, all pay rent just like you would any landlord, right? But the $4.4 billion is not all from that, right? But we actually have what we call bonding authority. So what we do is we take airport revenue, we can bond up to 10-to-1, leverage it 10-to-1. So the Port of Seattle issues general obligation. They're called geo bonds to basically banks and Wall Streeters, right? So we go out to Wall Street and say we will sell you this bond for 2%, 3% interest rate,
right?
And so we're basically taking out loans against our current revenue, and that's where we can get the $4.4 billion. We take current revenue and we leverage it through bonding authority to pay for it. You mentioned the tax levy, which is a very, very small part. I mentioned $4.4 billion is our capital budget. The tax levy for us is only about $75 million. It's a very, very small sliver of money for us. Everyone in King County who owns a property pays into it. I had my staff look into how much that is. Right now, the median household pays $72 a year. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
Towards our tax levy, and the tax levy is allocated toward a lot of community programs.
Oh, that's good to know. So I appreciate that little bit of financing dissection because I came from a financial background. I understand about the geo bond and the ratio to revenue and all of that. So that's very interesting. I thought it would be a biggest percentage, but 75 million out of 4.4 billion is like you said, a very small sliver.
Right.
Let's talk about the cruise line traffic. Some of the listeners send in questions that I'm going to ask you, right? So the cruise line traffic appears to be up this year, right? And they seem to be quite busy at the waterfront. So the tourists must have some impact with commerce along the waterfront and Puget Sound economy. Tell us about the impact, both positive and negative for those of us in King County due to cruise lines.
Yeah. So, I'll talk about the economic impact first, and then we can talk about the environmental impact. But cruise is a huge economic stimulant for our region.
Right.
The economic study shows that every person who comes here for a cruise spends about $1,800 in a local economy.
Right.
So if you think about it, if you're from California or anywhere in the country and you come to Seattle to get on the Alaska cruise, you're probably gonna buy a flight ticket, you're gonna book a hotel before the cruise day. You're probably gonna go around, look at Pike Place Market and some touristy stuff, maybe go to
eat,
eat, right? So those cruise goers are spending a lot of money locally.
Sure.
Right. It amounts to over $500 million in economic activity, for small and local businesses.
Sure.
So the economic impact of cruise cannot be understated.
Right.
It also creates a tremendous amount of jobs for the maritime industry as well. All those folks who work the cruise ships, loading the cruise ships, working the cruise ships. Those are all local labor, our brothers and sisters at the local longshore warehouse, ILWU, who work on those ships, and so it creates a lot of jobs as well, good paying jobs. The second part is also can't be understated, which is the environmental impacts. Obviously, cruise ships are basically floating cities, right? They have
feed the passenger. They have toilet and plumbing.
that's right.
So
Water
just like a city,
facilities,
right?
they have water treatment facilities. They have everything a city would have, right?
Right.
But with that takes a lot of energy, and yes, they burn fuel.
Yeah.
And so there is a tremendous environmental impact from the cruise industry that cannot be ignored. And there are many folks who feel like the cruise industry should be kicked out of our harbor because of the environmental impacts. We at the Port of Seattle, our goal is to become the greenest port in the country. And we have put in protocols, and infrastructure to make that happen. For instance, we talked about the cruise ships being polluters. Well, what people sometimes don't know is that when the cruise ship docks at our harbor, they don't turn off their engines because they're a floating city, right? They need power consistently.
Yeah.
And so instead of burning fuel at the harbor, what we've done is we've installed something called Offshore Power, which allows the boats to plug into the electrical grid so that they don't have to keep their engines running. Yeah. So as a port, we're exploring investing in a lot of upgrades that will make the industry more sustainable. Now, some people will say, oh, well, why don't you just kick them out altogether? My perspective is this, that, the cruise as an industry is going to exist regardless of whether or not they're in Seattle or Portland or whatever, right?
Right.
The question for us is not cruise or no cruise. The question is cruise in Seattle or cruise somewhere else.
Right.
And as a policymaker, my perspective is if cruise is going to exist anyway, I would rather have them come here and exist here where we can regulate them, where we can make them more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. I don't know what they would do in Vancouver or in Portland. I can't control that, right? So if they're dumping sewage or not powering down or plugging in, I can't control that if they go to a different port. But I'll tell you this: if they come to my port, they're definitely going to be practicing every form of sustainability and environmental practices, and that's why I think it's important for us to be leaders in this.
Right.
I don't think it's good policy making to just kick the can down the street and say, oh, it's someone else's problem. Like, just give it to Portland. They'll, I personally don't feel like that's responsible policy making. And not to mention the fact that, we all breathe the same air and all the oceans are connected, right? So even if we kick them out and they went to a different port, it would still going to affect us. So we might as well bring them here and make them abide by our rules.
And I understand we have a very strong government in supporting green building, green energy, burning fuel. So how much progress have we made in the last, say, 10 or 20 years comparing, to now?
Yeah. So there's a lot of research being done right now. On the aviation side, there's sustainable aviation fuels. Alaska Airlines has this great program where they use biofuels. And so I think on the aviation side, there's been a lot of progress. On the maritime side, it's been a little slower to adapt, but there's some great innovation happening in electrification and hydrogen. I'm very, very excited about hydrogen. And then obviously I told you about offshore power and electrification of things. The biggest challenge for that sustainability and fuel space is cost. Right, biofuels are more expensive, and infrastructure for sustainability is expensive. And at the end of the day, in order for us to transition from fossil fuels to sustainable sources of fuel, we need to achieve price parity. So basically, the cost of gasoline, fossil fuel, needs to be equal to or higher than sustainable fuels. And I think one way that we can get there is by having government help subsidize or reach that cost parity by reducing the cost of building out the infrastructure, right? That's, I think, if you look in the new Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill, there's a lot of money from the federal government that's trying to do exactly that. And so I'm really excited because, the Inflation Reduction Act has $3 billion just for ports,
right,
on sustainability. I mean, that's unheard of. And so we're going to be taking full advantage of that to transition the industry. But it's very exciting times. There's a lot of innovation and research, and we're contributing to that too.
Tell us more about the COVID restrictions requirements associated with cruise travel at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, all the cruise lines abide by CDC guidelines.
Mhm.
Technically, they don't require COVID tests, but here at the Port of Seattle, we've entered into an MOA where you do need COVID tests. And so, if you're getting on a cruise, I suggest you get you get a COVID test. The vessels currently most vessels have COVID testing on board as well.
Mhm.
The one caveat that I will throw out there for any cruise goers is that Canada has their own rules on COVID and testing, and
Mhm.
all our cruise vessels that go from Seattle to Alaska stop by Vancouver.
Hmm.
Yeah, so and if you plan on getting off the boat and going into Canada, I highly suggest you look at what their protocols are for COVID.
Requirements.
Exactly, it's
Wow.
going to be different from the U.S.
Interesting. Well, that is it on the subject of COVID. Now, you are very young. You're like in your early 30s. Are you like one of the youngest port commissioner at the Port of Seattle?
Yeah, I'm definitely the youngest right now.
Yeah.
And I've been saying that I was the youngest in history, and no one has refuted that yet. So I'm just
Huh.
going with it. I was 29 when I got elected,
Right.
and no one seems to have found out anyone or
Found out yet.
yeah,
Now they're gonna know.
yeah. So yeah, I would say that I'm pretty young, but I have some new colleagues who are also very young in their early 30s. So the average age of the commissioner, I think, has dropped by at least 20 years in the last 2 years.
Because of you, probably.
Me
What?
and Toshiko Hasegawa and Hamdi Mohammed, they're all in their early 30s. So
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Actually, I did not realize until I looked at you up on Wikipedia, and then I'm like, "Wow, he's so young." And
Yeah.
now you used to run a import export company called what is it called? Seven
Seven
Seas.
Seas Export, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us
used
about
I
that.
used to export American eggs to Asia,
That's
like chicken eggs,
Mhm.
not human eggs. It was a venture that I started when I left the Obama administration. I served President Obama through 2016 into his final days in January of 2017, and then Asia had a big bird flu outbreak, avian
Right.
influenza,
I remember.
and bird flu wiped out a lot of chicken
Mhm.
flocks, and a shortage of chicken led to a shortage of eggs. So
Right.
in parts of Asia like Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Japan, the price of eggs tripled. And so what I did is I started cold calling egg farms across the country to see if I can export American eggs to Asia. And
Wow.
that's how I got started.
And that's how you got involved into right before you got involved in politics. What made you made that switch?
To the business world, honestly, um, I had worked for Obama, and I was kind of burnt out from being in politics and government, and so I wanted to do something different. And so I basically said, let's start a business. And amazingly enough, the export experience as a business owner has been extremely helpful in my campaign, but also my job as a port commissioner. That's a lot of people called me and asked me to run for the port because they saw my policy experience and my business experience as being appropriate for the Port of Seattle. So
Fascinating.
yeah.
Well, so how much longer do you serve?
It's a 4-year term. This is my 3rd year, so I'll be up again for re-election next year.
Will you be running?
2023. As of now, I plan to go for a 2nd term. I love this job, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And like I said, I did it during COVID, right? I feel like I deserve a automatic renewal of my term just for surviving COVID.
Continue, yeah.
Exactly. So hopefully, the voters agree, and they'll put me in this position again this time next year.
Well, maybe you'll come back on Afternoons with Monique closer to the election and share with us your future vision of what you will continue to do for us. So thank you so much, Commissioner Semcho, on Afternoons with Monique.
Thank you, Monique.
All right. Well, next week we will have Windermere Chief Economic Officer, Mr. Gardner, on what is his name? I'm sorry. His name is, I apologize, it's escaped my mind at the moment. Matthew Gardner from Windermere Real Estate. And Windermere is one of the biggest name in real estate in the Washington State area. So stay tuned for next week. 2:00 episode is going to be a whole hour talking about economics of the region, housing from Dr. Gardner. All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone. See you again next week.